Welcome to What Dwells Beneath. I'm your host, Percival, and this spine-chilling journey is brought to you by the incredible talented Neku, our producer. Tonight, we descend into the shadows, exploring the unexplained through the stories that you, our loyal listeners, have shared with us. In our modern world, we rely heavily on technology and science to explain the mysteries around us. Yet, there's a part of us that remains fascinated by the unknown, the things that can't be easily explained or rationalized. It's the part of us that wonders about the shadows moving in the dark, the strange noises in the stillness of the night, and the fleeting glimpses of something otherworldly. These personal encounters with the unexplained are more than just stories. They are powerful reminders that the world is still full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Sharing personal stories and encounters of the unknown is vital because it allows us to connect with these mysteries on a deeply human level. When someone shares their experience, they are inviting us into their world, letting us see through their eyes. These encounters challenge our understanding and push us to question what we think we know. They remind us that the world is full of wonders and horrors that lie just beyond the edge of our perception. Today, we're privileged to share with you the first-hand experiences of our listeners, who have bravely come forward to recount their extraordinary encounters. These stories come from diverse backgrounds and locations, but they all share one thing in common. They leave us questioning the very fabric of our reality. Our journey begins with tales of ghostly apparitions that appear in the dead of night, shadowy figures that lurk in the corners of our vision, and encounters with beings that defy explanation. Here at What Dwells Beneath, we believe that every story matters. Every encounter is a piece of the puzzle, adding to our collective understanding of the unknown. We are deeply grateful to our listeners who have shared their personal experience with us. Their stories not only entertain and intrigue, but also inspire us to keep seeking answers to the questions that haunt us. Now, without further ado, let's dive into our very first listener-submitted personal encounter episode. Stay tuned, because the journey into the unknown is just beginning. So, dim the lights, settle in, and prepare to be transported into a world where the ordinary meets the extraordinary. This is What Dwells Beneath, and tonight we bring you the chilling, the eerie, and the unforgettable tales of the unknown. Listen closely, for the darkness holds many secrets, and tonight we aim to uncover them. Our first tale comes from Alex, and she decided not to give her location for privacy reasons. This encounter is titled The Smiling Man. Hello, fellow dwellers. I'm going to share a story that was told to me by my friend. For privacy reasons, I won't reveal our names, so let's call my friend Emily, and I'll go by Alex. Emily and I are both in our mid-20s, but her story dates back to when she was just 6 years old. Emily had an incredibly creepy experience when she was little. Emily lived in an old 2-story house with her parents and younger brother. Her bedroom was on the second floor, facing a large oak tree that cast shadows on her window at night. She was a sweet kid who loved to draw and play with her Barbies. However, what she told me about her nights alone in that room makes my skin crawl. For several months, Emily had nightly conversations with the man she called the Smiling Man. According to her, it started one night when she couldn't sleep. She was staring out her window, which was slightly open to let in the cool night breeze. That's when she saw him for the first time. The Smiling Man was standing outside her window, even though her room was on the second story. He was pale and dressed in old-fashioned clothes that looked like they were from the early 1900s. A buttoned-up shirt, trousers, and a waistcoat. What stood out the most was his smile. He always had this wide, unnerving smile on his face. Despite his strange appearance, Emily said he didn't seem mean or threatening. In fact, he almost felt like family to her, like a grandparent or a kind of old uncle. Each night, around the same time, the Smiling Man would appear at her window. They would talk for hours about all sorts of things. He asked her about her day, her favorite toys, and even shared old stories that sounded like they're from a different era. Emily never felt scared of him. She actually looked forward to her nightly chats. She said he had a soft, soothing voice that made her feel safe. He would always end their conversations with a gentle reminder to be a good girl and to listen to her parents. Sometimes he would compliment her drawings or give her advice on how to deal with her little brother when he was being annoying. Emily's parents were oblivious to these nightly visits. They thought she was going through a phase of talking to imaginary friends, but Emily insisted that the smiling man was real. One night, she even tried to introduce him to her mom by calling her into the room while he was there, but by the time her mom arrived, he was gone. Her mom brushed it off as Emily's overactive imagination and told her to go back to sleep. The conversations continued for a few weeks, and Emily started to draw pictures of the smiling man. She would draw him standing outside her window, always with the same wide smile. Her parents found the drawings and thought they were just part of her imaginative play. They had no idea that these drawings were based on a real encounter, or at least what Emily believed to be real. One night, Emily mentioned the smiling man to her dad. She said something like, "The smiling man told me a funny story last night." Her dad, curious but still skeptical, asked her to describe him. When Emily described the man's old-fashioned clothes and pale appearance, her dad got a little worried. The next morning, her father woke up and checked the yard, and even looked around the large oak tree outside her window, but found nothing unusual. Eventually, the visits stopped, as abruptly as they started. Emily never saw the smiling man again. Her parents never took her story seriously, thinking it was just a phase she had to grow out of. But Emily remembers every detail vividly and insists that it wasn't her imagination. Later in life, her father told her that there was a rumor that her great-grandmother was unfaithful with a local younger man that was a drifter, who eventually became a helping hand on the family property where they lived. He was unfortunately killed in an accident that happened on the property and was buried in the field, right behind the oak tree. Thank you, Alex, for submitting Emily's spine-tingling personal encounter. I really enjoyed reading that. Our next encounter is from a listener who calls themselves Bone Darrow from New Mexico, and their encounter is titled Possible Skinwalker Encounter. So, a couple years ago, I was visiting my grandparents in Arizona. They live near the Navajo Nation, and I've always heard crazy stories about skinwalkers. Honestly, I thought it was just all myths to scare kids, but something happened that changed my mind. One night, I decided to go for a walk in the woods. It was kind of cold, and the moon was super bright, making everything look all spooky and cool. I was just walking and enjoying the peaceful vibes when I suddenly heard this rustling noise behind me. I turned around expecting to see a raccoon or something, but there was nothing there. I shrugged it off and kept walking, but then I heard it again. This time it was much closer, and it was followed by this creepy, low growl. My heart started racing, but I tried to stay calm. When I slowly turned around, I saw what looked like a coyote standing there, but something seemed off. Its eyes were glowing in this weird, unnatural way, and its movements were kind of jerky, like it was trying to mimic a coyote, but it didn't quite understand how to do it. I was totally freaked out, and I tried to convince myself it was just a normal coyote. I pulled out my keychain that had a small flashlight on it, and I turned it on, shining it at the creature. What I saw next scared the crap out of me. The coyote didn't move like a normal animal. It almost seemed like it was sizing me up, and its gaze felt like it was too intelligent for an animal. And the last bit was the worst. The face seemed like it was not right, like it was falling off. I was so scared I couldn't move, but I knew how to do something. I started waving my flashlight and yelling, hoping to scare it off. The figure let out this chilling howl before disappearing into the darkness. I didn't wait around. I ran back to my grandparents' house as fast as I could. Since then, I've avoided late-night hikes, and I started to read up on old legends. Whether it was actually a skinwalker or just my imagination playing a trick on me, I still don't know. But that night has always stuck with me. And now, I kind of believe there might be some truth to what the internet and old stories have been saying. Darrow, thank you so much for submitting your encounter. I do plan on doing a Skinwalker episode very soon, so stay tuned for that. Our next encounter is from the Tin Man from Massachusetts. This encounter is titled, Don't Rent Haunted Houses for Fun. This all happened last summer, and I'm still kind of freaked out about it. I was 18, and I had just graduated from high school. My friends and I decided to celebrate by renting this old house in the countryside for a week. We looked up haunted house rentable on Google, and it was the first to pop up that was near us. Plus, it looked super cool and rustic in the photos. We thought it would be a perfect spot to hang out, have some fun, and just chill before we all went our separate ways for college. Besides, who doesn't love a good ghost hunt? The house was really old, like it looked straight out of a horror movie. It had these creaky wooden floors, vintage furniture, and a bunch of old portraits on the walls. You could tell it had a lot of history. When we got there, it was already late in the afternoon, so we quickly unpacked and decided to explore a bit before it got dark. Everything seemed fine at first. We found an old barn in the back and even a small pond. It was all super peaceful, but as the sun started to set, things started to get a little weird. The first thing that happened was when my friend Jacob swore he saw someone standing by one of the upstairs windows while we were outside. We all laughed it off, thinking he was trying to stir something or to get us freaked out. Later that night, we decided to play some board games in the living room. And no, not a Ouija board, actual board games. I think we were playing Risk. While we were playing, the lights flickered a few times. We didn't think much of it because we were in an old house and we figured, hey, maybe it's just old wiring. And we also believed that aesthetic helped people rent this place believing it was haunted. But then we started hearing these strange noises, like footsteps coming from upstairs. At first we thought it might be the house setting, but the footsteps seemed too rhythmic and deliberate. We decided to investigate, thinking it might be an animal or something trapped in the house. We grabbed some flashlights and headed upstairs. The creepy part was that as soon as we got to the top of the stairs, the noises stopped completely. We checked all the rooms, but there was nothing there. Just empty rooms with old furniture covered in dust. It was super creepy. Feeling a bit spooked, but trying to stay cool, we went back downstairs and continued with our game. A couple of hours later, around midnight, we heard a loud bang coming from the kitchen. We all jumped up and ran to see what happened. When we got there, we found one of the old portraits had fallen off the wall. It was one of those really old ones with a stern-looking man in a suit. The weird thing was, the nail it had been hanging on was still intact and firmly in the wall. We hung the portrait back up and decided to call it a night. Everyone was feeling a bit uneasy, but we tried to brush it off as just a series of coincidences. I went to bed, and that's when things got really intense. I was lying there trying to fall asleep when I started hearing whispers. It sounded like multiple people were whispering all around me, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. It was like they were speaking in another language, or my brain couldn't firmly grasp on what was going on. I woke up and I looked around, but I didn't see anything. Then I noticed a shadow moving across the wall. It was slow and deliberate, like someone was walking just out of my sight. My heart was racing and I felt this intense sense of dread. I wanted to scream, but I was frozen in fear. I finally mustered up the courage to get out of bed and to get to my friends' rooms. I woke them up and told them what happened. Surprisingly, a couple of them had similar experiences. One of my friends said that she felt like someone was tugging at her blanket, and another said he heard knocking on his door even though no one was there. We all decided to sleep in the living room together for the rest of the night. The next morning, we were all on edge. We tried to enjoy the rest of our trip, but the weird occurrences kept happening. Doors would open and close on their own, objects would move, and we kept hearing those damn footsteps. We honestly didn't think the house would actually be haunted, and truth be told, we really didn't believe in those kind of things. On the last night, we decided to do some research on the house. We found out that it had a pretty dark history. Apparently, there was a family that lived there about 100 years ago, and there was a tragic incident where one of the children was drowned in the pond. We were pretty freaked out, but glad we were leaving the next day. That night, we all stayed up, not wanting to go to sleep. Around 3 a.m., the atmosphere in the house changed. It felt like the temperature dropped and the air got super thick. We heard a loud, echoing crash from the attic, and we had never been up there, and that wasn't about to change. We decided it was time to leave at that very second. Even though it was in the middle of the night, we packed up all our stuff and got out of there as quickly as we possibly could. As we drove away, we felt this overwhelming sense of relief, like we had escaped something really dangerous. Even now, whenever we get together, we still talk about that week at the haunted house. None of us can explain what happened, but we all agree on one thing. You shouldn't rent haunted houses for fun. I agree, Tin. Don't rent haunted houses for vacation. However, you got what you paid for. If you rent it through Airbnb, you should definitely rate that property 5 stars. Our next encounter is written in by Olivia of Arkansas. Their encounter is titled Black-Eyed Kid or Cowboy Prankster. My name is Olivia, and I'm leaving out my last name in case any family members hear this. So back in 2019, when I was 16, something super creepy happened to me that still freaks me out. I live in Jasper, Arkansas, which is pretty much a quiet, small town. My mom went on a date, leaving me home alone for the night. I was kind of excited because I could binge watch a movie on the living room big TV without anyone bothering me. The evening started off normal. I made some ramen, grabbed my blanket, and I started to watch a horror movie on Netflix. It was one of those really windy nights, which made it even more perfect for a scary movie. The wind was howling and the trees were shaking. Classic spooky night, right? Around 9 p.m., I heard the soft knocking at the front door. I got super freaked out because I wasn't expecting anyone. I paused the movie and I tiptoed to the door. The knocking continued, steady and kind of creepy. I looked through the peephole and I saw a kid standing there. He looked about 8 or 9 years old, wearing old-fashioned cowboy clothes that didn't look right for 2019. His head was down, and his long hair covered his face in a weird way. I thought maybe he was lost or something, so I opened the door a bit. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying not to sound scared. The kid lifted his head, and that's when I saw his eyes. They were completely black, like 2 dark holes. I couldn't move or speak. I was totally frozen with fear. "Can I come in?" the kid asked in his weird, monotone voice. "I need to use your phone." Everything in me was screaming to shut the door, but I was just standing there, staring at him. There was something seriously wrong with this kid. His voice was flat and his eyes seemed like a void of emptiness. "I don't have a phone," I lied. "I just wanted him to go away." I know that sounds bad, wanting a possible lost kid to go away, but if you were there, you would most likely have done the same thing. "Please let me in," he said in the same creepy voice. For a second, I almost opened the door wider, but then I snapped out of it and I slammed the door shut. I locked it and backed away, my heart pounding like crazy. After a few seconds, the knocking started again, harder this time. I stumbled backward and I grabbed my phone to call my mom. My hands were shaking so much I could barely dial her number. The phone just kept ringing, no answer. I left a panicked voicemail begging her to come home. After a few minutes, the knocking eventually stopped, but I didn't dare move. It felt like hours, but finally, I heard my mom's car pulling into the driveway. I ran to the door and threw it open, practically jumping into her arms. I told her everything, but she didn't believe me. She thought it was just a kid playing a prank or my imagination running wild from the scary movie. For weeks, I couldn't sleep properly. Every little noise made me jump, and I kept seeing those black eyes in my nightmares. I started researching, and I found out about black-eyed kids. Urban legends about kids with pitch black eyes who show up at people's doors, asking to be let in. The more I read, the more convinced I was that I had encountered one of them. Even now, years later, I can't shake the memory of that night. My family still thinks it was just a prank, but I know what I saw. Olivia, no judgment on my end. I too would have lied to a black-eyed child. The next and final encounter for today's episode was actually the first encounter to be written into the podcast. Not only that, it takes place in my neck of the woods. It's from Avery Man for himself, and it took place in the mountains of North Georgia. Their encounter is titled, "Did Bigfoot Steal My Snacks?" It happened during COVID lockdown back in 2020 when I was 23 years old. Like many people, I was feeling cooped up and desperately needing a change of scenery. I decided to go camping in the North Georgia mountains, even though I've never really camped before. I figured it'd be a great way to escape the monotony and enjoy some fresh air. Plus, at the time, I was going through a breakup and we lived together. I just needed to get out. I gathered all the gear that I thought I need. Tent, sleeping bag, flashlight, and some basic supplies. The drive up to the mountain was beautiful, and by the time I reached my campsite, I was feeling very excited. I found a spot tucked away in the trees. I set up my tent, and I settled in for the night. As the sun set, the forest came alive with the sounds of nature. It was the peace I was looking for. I built a small fire, cooked some hot dogs, tried and hated dehydrated chili I bought at REI. After that, I laid in my hammock and tried to relax. The woods were dark, and the only light came from my flickering campfire. Around 10 p.m., I decided to call it a night. I put out the fire, zipped up my tent, and crawled into my sleeping bag. I was drifting off to sleep when I heard a distant, low howl. It sounded unlike anything I'd ever heard before. My heart started to race, but I tried to convince myself it was just some animal and it'll go away. The howls continued, getting closer and more intense. They didn't sound like any animal I'd ever heard. And being a Georgia boy, I've heard a lot of animals. I sat up, my ears straining to catch every sound. The howls were accompanied by the sound of branches snapping and trees being hit. It was like something was moving through the forest, something big. I grabbed my flashlight and I shone it around the inside of my tent, but I couldn't bring myself to unzip it and look outside. Then I heard the footsteps, heavy, deliberate steps, like someone or something was walking just outside my tent. My breathing grew shallow, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I held my breath, straining to hear every single movement. The footsteps circled my tent, slow and methodical. Whatever it was, it didn't seem to be in a hurry. I tried to rationalize what I was hearing. Maybe it was a bear or a deer, but deep down I knew it was something else. The howls, the tree knocks, the footsteps, they didn't add up to any animal I knew of. I heard stories about Bigfoot before, being a believer and all. The footsteps finally stopped, and for a moment, everything was silent. Then a loud, guttural growl filled the air. It was so close, like I could reach out and touch it outside my tent. I could feel the vibrations through the ground. I clutched my flashlight, my knuckles were white, and I prayed it would go away. The growl echoed through the trees, sending a chill down my spine. I don't know how long I sat there, frozen in fear, but eventually the sounds of footsteps faded away, and the howls grew distant again. I stayed up the rest of the night, too scared to close my eyes. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig had me on edge. When the sun came up, I finally mustered the courage to unzip my tent and peek outside. The forest was calm and still, as if nothing had happened. I quickly packed up my gear, eager to get out of there. As I was leaving, I noticed something strange. All my extra food and snacks were gone, not even wrappers, like they were picked up and taken away. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing with what I had just experienced. When I told my friends and family about it, they were skeptical. Years have passed since that night in the North Georgia mountains, but the memory is still in the back of my mind. I haven't been camping since, and I'm not sure I ever will again. Avery, what a wild first camping experience. I'm very happy you didn't open the tent that night. Thank you for joining us for our very first listener encounter episode on What Dwells Beneath. Every single encounter submitted has been a thrilling journey, and I'm genuinely grateful for each one. We have many more encounters to go over and in future episodes. I cannot wait to share them with you. Before we wrap everything up, I want to encourage you to share your personal encounters with us. If you would like to submit an encounter, please join our Discord community. There, you'll find a form in the personal encounter section that you can fill out and send our way. When submitting, please aim for 1,000 words or more. More detailed encounters are likely to end up on an episode, while those on the shorter side may feature as a short-form content on our social media channels. I do reword things to ensure a smooth flow, but I never alter the essence of your story. Speaking of our Discord community, we're now at over 2,300 members, filled with gamers, paranormal enthusiasts, and true crime aficionados. It's a very friendly and engaging community, so definitely consider joining us. If you're looking to follow my gaming content or any of my socials, including the Discord, all the links can be found in the episode description. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to our listeners, our dwellers of What Dwells Beneath. Your support and engagement make this show possible, and I deeply appreciate every single one of you. I also want to give a special shout out to Neku for producing such an amazing show. As we close this episode, remember that the shadows often hold secrets yet to be discovered. So, keep your lights dim and your curiosity bright, for you never know what dwells beneath. Until next time, this is Percival, signing off. Stay curious, stay safe, and keep exploring the unknown.